If we depend on thinking as a way of having our life work, the evidence is already in on that. Because you've been thinking since you learned language, you've been thinking. And all the thinking you've done has not resulted in the peace that you desire, has not resulted in the freedom that is possible, has not resulted in the happiness and satisfaction that's possible. The teachings tell us that well-being is really possible. It is possible to be happy, satisfied, and peaceful in this life. That's what the teachings tell us, and the teachings go into great detail to explain how that possibility is real and how it works. But when we go to practice, we're going to apply that understanding, and the application of that understanding in practice involves sitting still and being quiet and moving attention away from that thought activity so that we're available to witness that which we have an understanding of. We become available to witness the truth instead of just know about it as an intellectual understanding. And this is critical, this is important, because that's where the rubber meets the road. That's what will make the difference in terms of your life fulfilling its potential, in terms of your life fulfilling its potential to be an experience of well-being, an experience of satisfaction, an experience of peace, an experience of fulfillment, an experience of being fully alive, an experience of the truth. And the truth that there is an experience that's available of through meditation, right, is the truth of your existence. It's the truth. When you practice meditation, you're experiencing existence. You're experiencing existence. In the normal state of affairs, you're not experiencing existence, are you? No, you're experiencing thinking about things. You're experiencing feeling things. You're experiencing doing things. But existence is nowhere to be found. Existence is pure. Existence is uncontaminated. Existence is pure being. Awareness itself, consciousness itself. And in the practice of meditation, there's a possibility of having a direct witnessing of this truth, a direct witnessing of this truth. That's what's available when you move attention away from the thought activity and the experience of awareness witnessing the body breathing. You're the experience of awareness witnessing the body breathing. You're not thinking about it. You're not thinking about it. You don't have any beliefs about it. No, you are the experience of existence, and you are the experience of watching the body breathe. And this becomes the opportunity for you to have a direct relationship with reality. This is an opportunity if you have a direct relationship with the truth, the way things really are. And that's different from thinking. Yeah, thinking is when you think about things, right, you interpret the way things are based on your conditioning. And then, as is the case for most of humanity, that interpretation becomes the reality you live your life in. That mental state becomes the world you're living in. You know, if I ask you who you are, you tell me what you think. If I ask you what is true, you tell me what you think. If I ask you anything, you tell me what you think, because that's the essence that you associate with in terms of what's real and what's true. That's that's what's making the world go around, what people think, right? It's become an obvious detrimental condition, hasn't it? Look at social media, right? What people think has become a nightmare, not just the source of information, it's become a nightmare. Because there's so much thinking available now through social media and news media and so forth, right? And it's all over the board. It's all over the board, right? So what of it is true? What's the truth? It's become harder and harder to know where to put your feet. It's become harder and harder to know what to trust, to know where to walk, to know what to do. And so we're in a crisis. We're in an information crisis. We're in a crisis in which reality is no longer obvious the way it has been in the past, right? We have people now that believe in completely different and opposite realities trying to live together, right? So this is the crisis that we're in. It's a crisis of thinking. It's a crisis of reaction. It's a crisis of emotion. and it's a collective crisis that's an expression of that same reality in our individual lives, that we're confused. People are confused. People are reactivated. People are upset. People are being run by strong feelings. People are being run by strong beliefs. And suffering is greater than it's ever been on this planet. Suicide is, there's more people killing themselves to escape this reality than ever before. There's more people that are risking their life to take drugs to experience an altered state to escape from this reality. And there are a lot of people who are living in a mental state in which there is enough going on there that is not related to anything real that they become dangerous. So that's what we got. That's the predicament that we're in. But if you look at that predicament from a spiritual perspective, from an enlightened perspective, from an awake perspective, right? The way that occurs to people who are familiar with the wisdom teaching is that this is a good thing. This is a good thing because in the context of spiritual teaching, in the context of the truth, suffering has a meaning. Suffering is what's necessary to wake you up. Suffering is the only thing that will get you to question what's happening and to seek, to become a seeker, to begin to seek some way out of this, to begin to seek some peace, to begin to seek some state of well-being. And now we know from the brain scientists who studied meditators, and these meditators are experiencing a state of well-being. We know from the scientific research that the brain changes, and it's possible through the practice of meditation to practice in such a way where well-being becomes available. So that's not spiritual belief, that's not some wishy-washy thing. This is hard science now that's telling us that the brain changes when you meditate. And when the brain changes, you change, because the brain is the center of your experience as far as thinking is concerned, as far as moving around in the world, the whole 9 yards. And now we've got research. I'm going to print this up to bring it into the class. My wife showed me an article from Scientific American magazine, a very highly respected science magazine, in which they are discovering intelligence is not just located in the brain. That they're discovering that one-cell organisms demonstrate memory and intelligence. One-cell organisms. There aren't two parts to it. It's one thing. One-cell organism demonstrates memory and intelligence. They've proven it scientifically. It's an incredible article. And then what they did was they examined that one cell to see, how's this happening? Where is the memory? Where is the intelligence? We're looking at one cell. We don't see how that's happening, right? But then they started to measure the charge, the electrical charge in the cell. And they started to find out that the electrical charge in one part of the cell was different from it was in the other part of the cell. And then they started to realize that the intelligence is a function of an invisible electric charge, an invisible electric current. In spirituality, we call this the life force, or the chi, right? It's invisible. It's a current. We measure the same thing in the brain for brain activity, right? But now they're showing through scientific research that all the cells in the body are intelligent, and all the cells in the body have memory. This is completely consistent with spiritual teaching, isn't it? What? Because the spiritual teaching says that what we are is not physical, doesn't it? Yeah, spiritual teacher says that what we are is an experience that's called consciousness or awareness that's real, right? And it can be measured as an electrical charge that leaves the body at death. The chi, the life force, leaves the body at death. So science is continuing to develop evidence that's consistent with ancient teachings about what the truth is. That if you do meditation over time, you begin to experience an alteration in how your life occurs to you. You begin to experience a shift in the way you're related to what's happening. And this is a good thing because the shift involves a sense of letting go right? It involves a realization that the awareness that you are is not personal. It involves the realization that the awareness that you are is not a personality. The awareness that you are, the essential awareness that is your true nature, right, is free from being affected by situations and circumstances. It's always calm, still, and silent. It's always satisfied, happy, and peaceful. It never moves, it never goes anywhere, it never does anything. So through practice over time, you begin to notice, through practice over time in meditation where you're moving your attention away from the thought process and being aware and being, moving your attention away from the thought process and being, and the being that you're being is aware of the body breathing. The being that you're being. So in the beginning of the practice, you may just have it be for you that you're practicing being aware of the body breathing, and every time you notice you're thinking, you come back to being aware of the body breathing. That's the practice, right? But at some point, especially if you've been studying the teachings, at some point, it starts to occur to you, wait a minute, I am being the awareness watching the body breathing, and I'm not doing anything to be that. That's the way it is. I didn't change to be that. That's the way it is. I changed to be what I think I am. That's not the way it is. It's a concept. It's something that's being generated in my thinking. But if I move my attention to being the awareness of the body breathing, and I do this over time consistently, it starts to dawn on me that I am that being that's aware of the body breathing. It starts to dawn on me that I am that being that's aware of the body breathing. And it starts to dawn on me that when I'm being, that there's an experience that's available to me of peace. When I'm being that being, there's an experience that's available to me that's satisfying, that's fulfilling. You could even call it happiness. Because when I'm being that being, I'm experiencing my existence. I'm experiencing my existence. I'm experiencing that I exist as a being, not as a body, not as a thinker, as a being. And if I practice this over time, right, the effect of experiencing myself this way, because when I say experiencing myself this way, there is no duality here. I'm talking that way because language is dualistic, right? But when I say when I am experiencing myself that way, what I mean is when it's experiencing itself that way. It's not personal. It's consciousness aware of itself. It's consciousness aware of itself. I am not a personality or a body anymore. I am awareness aware of itself. There's a freedom that's now available to me, a freedom to be what I am, a freedom to exist as what I actually am, and to experience that this existence is fulfilling. And to the extent that I practice such that this existence is available to me consistently, my life is a different life, because the seeing that I'm doing, if I don't kill myself first, the seeing that I'm doing is the seeing of consciousness, not the seeing of a corrupted thought process. I'm not seeing what I think I'm seeing what's there. I'm seeing things as they are. In other words, I'm making contact with the truth. I'm making contact with reality as it actually is, right? Reality as it actually is I am not this body. You know, I have been given a lease to ride around in it for a brief period of time, right? But that's not what I am. The awareness that I am will identify itself with this body for a brief period of time, right? But that's not what I am. I am not the body. I am the awareness. And the awareness is not limited to the body. The awareness is aware of the entire universe, not just the body. This is the case all the time. And when I experience things that way, there's a spontaneous experience of well-being, happiness, peace, and satisfaction. Now, once that occurs, and Zen it's called Kensho, you know, once that experience happens where I recognize my true nature and I know what I am now, not like a thought, not like something I could tell anybody, right? But a direct experience of what's happening as awareness, right? That I used to call me. Now I don't call it me anymore, right? Now I call it thy. Now I call it awareness. Now I call it consciousness. Now I call it God, right? Now I call it the unified field. Doesn't matter what you call it. What matters is that you make contact with it so you can come out of the dream you've been having, because that dream is an unworkable situation. It's not going to end well. If you identify with the body, it's not going to end well. Can you see that? It's obvious. If you identify with the body and the body gets sick, you're sick, right? Recently, I had an experience where my body was in a crisis, right? I had some medical procedures done that are just part of what you do when you become an old man. You have cameras inserted in all your orifices. This is called modern medicine. You have cameras, stuff. Yeah, make movies of your interior, the interior of your body, right? So I had a routine procedure like that, and after the procedure, you know, the nurse told me you were coughing when you were under the anesthesia, right? And so I didn't make much of that, you know, I seemed to be okay. But when I went home, within an hour, right, my body was in a crisis. I was shaking so hard I couldn't stand up, right? And I had all these blankets on top of me, and after a little while, the shaking subsided, and then the body went into fever. And the fever was just going up point by point, right? And I went into a brain fog, right? And it almost seemed like everything was slowly getting darker, right? So if you're my age and that's happening, and the only option you have is to go sit in the ER, I started meditating. You see, that's what this is about. This is about when things like that happen, you have the opportunity, right, to shift into your true nature and be the awareness of what's happening instead of suffering as the body. And so I shifted into meditation. I just started watching this happen with the body and started watching the body breathing. And as I did that, you know, any interest that I had in my thinking started to subside. You know, thinking about, oh, what's wrong? What should I do? Should I go to the emergency ward? Am I dying? Then, you know, my interest in all that started to subside as I redirected my attention to just watching the body, watching the experience of the body, watching the body breathing, watching the body in crisis. And it was like dying. It was really like dying, right? Letting go, you know, letting go. One of the things that you learn in these teachings is that holding on is a waste of your time, right? Because the idea that you can do anything or change anything is an illusion, right? So when you get to the bare truth of reality, right, especially in a crisis situation like that, letting go starts to happen, especially if you've been a practitioner of meditation and you start to experience watching the body breathe, watching the body in crisis. Everything started to slow down, everything started to get quiet, and I just fell asleep. And when I fell asleep, I was in complete let go, complete free fall, you know, in the sense that I had let go in the sense that if I don't wake up, fine, you know. My teachers talked about this. This is the first time I've had this experience so clearly. My teachers talked about this where he had near-death experiences, yeah? And every time that's happened, he just sees that I don't know how this is going to turn out, right? It feels like it might be the end, right? So let me just relax and be here and watch this happen every single time. I was saying earlier that the Buddha taught that there are two arrows that we have to deal with in life that will hit us. You know, one is the inevitable realities of being in a human body and living a human life, right? There will be pain, there will be physical pain, there will be unpredictable situations and accidents that happen that are very challenging, right? That will stir up strong emotion, that will stimulate survival patterns of thinking, you know? All that will happen, that's one arrow. And the Buddha said, I can't help you with that. Nobody can help you with that. That's just part of living a human life. But he said there's another arrow, and the other arrow that's going to hit you are your reactions to all the things that happened from the first arrow. Your resistance to what happens from the first arrow. Your attempts to stop it from happening when it's already happened. You know, your suffering based on the idea of why me, or you're suffering based on the idea that this shouldn't happen, I don't like this, I don't want this. That's the other arrow, and the Buddha said that one I can help you with. You can't stop what's happening, but you can certainly change the way you're related to it. That's the definition of trauma, by the way. Trauma is when something happens that's very challenging, very intense, right? If the way you relate to it is that it really throws you into a state of despair and upset, right? That's being traumatized, right? But if the same thing happens to somebody who's been a practitioner and they just watch it happen and be a witness to what's happening, they're not traumatized. This is very important to understand, because what it says is it's not what's happening that causes trauma, it's the way it's occurring to the person it's happening to that causes the trauma. And if you understand that and you practice meditation, right, then you can avoid being subjected to post-traumatic stress. You can avoid being subjected to trauma that will continue to produce suffering in your life. So meditation is a way to wake up and see things as they are, and the way they are is that who you thought you were, right, does not exist outside of thinking. And what you really are does exist without thought. Who you think you are does not exist without thinking, and what you really are exists without thought. Okay? And that's what we want. We want to realize the truth. We want to experience the truth of ourselves so we can experience what that makes available to us in living a human life, so that we can stop clinging to life, stop trying to change it and hold on to it, and let it go. You know, let things be as they are. Let life happen as it's happening. Let your life conclude itself when it concludes itself. Don't try and hold on. Until you allow yourself to experience letting go, until you allow yourself to experience the truth, which is that you are the awareness itself, you are that which cannot be harmed, you are that which is timeless, you are that which is impossible to kill, you are that which its nature is well-being all the time under all circumstances, including death. Until you come to that realization and make contact with that reality, you're surviving. You're surviving. You know, just watch the way your mind works, right? Because when you're born, the first thing that happens as you mature and learn about life and learn about living your life, right, you gradually begin to become aware of the fact that you're going to die, right? So that then becomes the big boogeyman. That then becomes the big thing that you don't want to think about it, you're trying to avoid it, you're trying to resist it, you're trying to stay away from that experience, right, all your life. Right? That's called survival. So your life then becomes a situation in which you're experiencing things as an opportunity to get through it, called survival. That's getting through it. That's not experiencing it. That's not enjoying it. Right? That's not appreciating it. That's not being grateful that you're alive. No, you're too busy getting through it. You're too busy getting through the day, getting through the week, getting through the year, getting to the end of your life, called retirement. That's clear evidence for the illusion that people are experiencing. It's clear evidence for the condition that people are in. You're in a hurry to get to the end of your life. That's what people are doing. Look around. You get up in the morning, what do you look forward to? The end of the day. Right? Start the week on Monday. What do you look forward to? The end of the week. The end of the year. The end of your career. This is insanity. This is insanity to want to get it over with, right? But it's a confusing situation, because on the one hand, you want to get it over with, but on the other hand, just as much as you want to get it over with, you want to enjoy it. You want to be satisfied. You want to be peaceful. You want to experience what's possible in this experience in time and space of a human life. You want that, but at the same time you want that, you want to get it over with. Make up your mind. You can't have it both ways. You can't be here now and want to get it over with at the same time, right? Yeah, so meditation is about allowing you to recognize that wanting to get it over with is a condition you're in. It's a conditioned state. It's a survival condition. You want to get by it. You want to get through it. That's why constantly, if you're paying attention, if you wake up and you start to pay attention to what's going on, you start realizing that anybody that occurs to you in a threatening way, right? You shift into survival mode. I want to get away from them, right? Anything that appears to be too uncomfortable, you shift into the survival mood. I want to get away from that. I don't like it. I don't want it. I want to change it. Can you see you're surviving? You're not experiencing being alive. You're experiencing getting it over with, getting through it, right? Meditation, that's why when we practice meditation, we're sitting still, being silent. We're not doing anything. We're not going anywhere. We're not trying to control anything. We're letting all that go for a while and just allowing ourselves to experience what it would be like to just be here. What would it be like to just be here? Be where? What would it be like to let go of this identity that has not served me and allow myself to make contact with the truth and experience what it's like to be still, silent, and peaceful, and know that this stillness, silence, and peace is always available to me. It's called awareness, and it is what I actually am. And by practicing that consistently so that my identity starts to move away from the dream state, move away from the illusion to the reality of my existence, as that happens, I begin to see a different world. I begin to realize that the world is an appearance. I begin to realize that the world is an appearance being generated by my brain, and if I retrain my brain to see it as it is, I will begin to flow naturally, with ease, with no effort, and experience my life as a gift. That's what's available. But it's not available if you're stuck in a survival mode. It's not available if you think you're this body, and as this body, you're trying to stop time. The body is a time body. You can't stop time. You know, when you get to 50, 60, 70 years old and you look in the mirror, the evidence is pretty clear. You have not stopped the aging of the body, right? That's not going to happen. So this world we're in is a time world, right? It's a space-time world. And the body's a time body. It will all go the same way it came, right? But if you practice meditation and you make contact with that which does not change, that which is timeless, right? Like Mooji said, you only have one life to live, and that's forever. When you make contact with that, it's very easy when you make contact with the truth to let go of the way you thought it was. It's very easy when you make contact with the truth to let go of the way you thought it was, because you see the way you thought it was a misunderstanding of reality, right? And when you see it the way it actually is, it's a big relief. It's a big relief, because you realize that all the doing that you thought you had to do in order to have your life work is a waste of time. You never did anything, and you never will do anything, right? Somebody on my YouTube channel left a message, and they said, I'm paraphrasing it, but they said if there's no free will, because that's part of the teaching, they said if there's no free will, how can I plan to meditate? It's an understandable question, right? The way I would respond to that is to say, oh, I get it. You think that you asked that question. That question occurred in your awareness. Then it came out of your mouth, right? You thought that that thought. You thought that you spoke that question, right? I get it, that's the way that it occurred for you, right? You have to understand something. This whole business about free will is easy to resolve. It's easy to resolve. When you first hear it, you say, oh, that can't be true because I experience having free will all the time. I'm choosing to do things all the time, right? Well, there's no conflict with free will when you come to understand that what you think you're choosing to do is happening. You're not doing it, it's happening, right? That's all. It's not going to change anything. You'll continue to do what you do. It'll continue to occur to you that you're doing what you're not doing. And if you want to actually experience the truth about it, right, when you begin to practice meditation and you come out of the illusion you have about what you are, and you start to make contact with the truth of your awareness and what that awareness actually is, which is godlike, right? When you start to understand that, if you want to experience having free will, the only free will you have is the will that is thy will be done. And when you let go of your illusion, when you let go of the illusion that you're doing it, and you accept the truth, right, that it's happening from the source, right? If you identify with that source, now you do have free will, because its will is your will. When God's will is your will, you have free will. Until God's will isn't your will, right? You think you have free will, but the free will that you think you have is not real. In other words, saying it another way, you're not doing anything. What's happening is doing you. You're not doing it, it's doing you. You know? That's the truth. These things are not easily understood by most people because we've all been conditioned a certain way, and anything that doesn't fit that conditioning we tend to reject. Right? But if you stay with the teachings and you stay with the practices over time and you let it sink in and you start to have a direct experience of it, there's no doubt anymore. There's no doubt anymore. And then you can start to live a life worth living. Then you can start to live a life in peace, satisfaction, and happiness. Why? Because now you're aligned with reality as it is. You're not being in opposition to reality. You're not resisting it. You're not in conflict with it. You're not fighting it. You're not trying to survive it. You're just allowing everything to be the way it is and allowing the truth to be true. You're allowing what you are to be what you are. And now when you allow what you are to be what you are, the way it is allowed to be the way it is. And when you allow it to be, it allows you to be, everything's fine. Everything's flowing, everything's perfect. Not the way it's occurring to people ordinarily, is it? No. So if you want to get out of that situation and you want to experience the truth, then you have to be willing to let go of your good ideas, sit still and be quiet, and practice paying attention so that you can notice how things actually are. You know? And then not just notice how things actually are, but then to live that way so that your life becomes a life that is fulfilled because you exist, not because of what's happening. It's fulfilled because you exist, not because of what's happening. Right? So that old Advaita statement that I keep repeating over and over again, Sat Chit Ananda, right? Existence, it's fulfilled because you exist. Existence, and it's fulfilled because you exist as what? Consciousness. And when you exist as consciousness, the experience is of well-being. That's called the natural state. That's available at all times. But you have to practice seeing when you're not in that and you're experiencing a condition. And when you experience that condition, right, you have to allow yourself to be aware of the fact, you have to allow yourself to be awake to the fact that that is a condition. And as soon as you see it as a condition, you're free from the effects of it. As soon as you see that thinking and emotions has been as soon as you see that the mind has been torturing you, that you have lived in the tyranny of your own mind, as soon as you see that, right, it dissolves. As soon as you see that a mirage is never going to produce water, you stop trying to get water from the mirage.